In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to create this curved layout animation in After Effects. So I'm gonna be working with this shot right here with this guy and a VR headset. I thought it would be a kind of a cool addition. Anyways, let's go ahead and start by tracking my character. And you don't have to do this, you can do this as a stable animation or overlay, but I do wanna track the subject here. So I'm gonna be using Mocha. Now, if you're new to Mocha or After Effects, this is basically a tracking tool. It comes in with your After Effects, and I do have some tutorials on it, but let me just quickly show you how easy it is to track. So I'm gonna select the pen tool right here, and let's select rather a flat surface that doesn't have too much movement. And in this case, I only need the position here, so I will unselect scale, and we can track forward. Now you can see that the mask we created stays on our subject pretty well here, so let's just let it track. Alright, you can go ahead and review your tracking here, see that it rather stays well. Then Control S to save this whole thing, and let's exit out. Now I will create a new null object. Go into my footage here, tracking data, create track data, and you can see the dots being created here. I'm gonna set the export option to transform and select the null object we created. Once we hit apply, we basically transitioned all the tracking data to this null object, and you can see it follows our character. All right, let's get into the actual animation of the icons. So I've got this layout here of a bunch of random icons I found. Now I'm terrible at finding random placements and stuff, so bear with me and use this as an inspiration, but I just placed randomly these text layers and icons over this composition. Now, what I want to do here is select everything. Let's go to the first frame, hit P for position, and I'm just going to have it slide in as an entry animation. So let's set a keyframe right here. Go to the beginning, and I'll just slide them to the left. By the way, if you hold down Shift and slide it, it's going to increase the properties. So then I'll go to about here and set a new keyframe, go a few frames forward, and exit out. So the same thing, just to the right of my comp. Let's select all the keyframes here, hit F9, go into our graph editor, and I just want to make a fast entry here and sort of an ease towards the end. So now we got it coming in and leaving out the frame like so. Now, the first thing I want to do here is turn on motion blur so it smooths things out. And I do want to offset some of the layers so it doesn't just come in at once, so maybe we can randomly just drag each layer a frame or two just so it's not as uniform. So this way we get a bit of variation here, and it's not just a big chunk. You can offset this even more. Now, one thing I don't really like is that everything is so stable once it comes in. So what we can do here is add a wiggle effect. So if you search for wiggle, you got a few options here. Let's select the wiggle position, and I'll keep it the default. So if you take a look at this icon right here, it has this sort of a floating animation once it comes in, and you can lower the amount here, maybe 40, so it's not as aggressive. This is just a nice touch in my opinion, so it's not as stable. And yeah, so once we've done that, let's just grab these two, copy them and paste them into our comp. So this is what we've got for this composition, and then it exits out looking pretty smooth. Going back to the main comp, I'm going to drop the icons we've created, and I'm going to parent it to our tracking. So you can see it follows our subject. And something a lot of people like to use for this effect is a CC cylinder, which is a nice effect and usually helps out a lot. But what I don't like here is the amount of control. So if we scale up the radius, you can see that we get a lot of distortion here, and there just isn't much control here. So what I like to use instead, since we can now, is turn the layer into a 3D layer, make sure we are set to advanced 3D, and let's also create a camera since we are in 3D space. So like this is fine. And now I'm going to rotate my layer here, scale it down a bit, and I'm just gonna try to position this according to my scene. And then if we go into the settings here, we got geometry options and something called curvature. Now, if we increase or decrease this, you can see we get sort of a half a circle here, basically warping our layer in 3D space. Now I'm going to set this to -100 just so we get the curve towards the camera. And by increasing the segments, we are smoothing out the polygons of this comp. So I can scale this down just a bit here. And by unselecting the chain here, I can control the parameters individually, unlike CC cylinder, I believe, and I can place it right here. And I can also increase the Z depth here, so we have less or more warping on our icons. So I'll position this right here. And I'll also hit AA twice on my layer, and under accept lights here, I'm just going to turn it to off so we fully see them. Now the only downside to using Advanced 3D right now is we don't have a transfer mode. But a quick fix for that would be just select the camera, null, and icons, pre-compose them. Let's rename this to icons. Now we got the same pre-comp, but not in a 3D layer, but we can set a transfer mode. So I can set this to screen or overlay or anything, and I just have a bit more control. Let me just lower the opacity a tiny bit here. And we can also add some glow to this. You can use deep glow if you do own the plugin. I'm just gonna use the default one for the tutorial sake. Now, one thing I don't like about this is we see sort of a sharp edge where the icons are coming out of and exiting out as well. So a quick fix for that would be going to the icons comp here, and I'm just gonna pre-compose it all and create a mask shape around my edges like so. So basically what I want to achieve is once the icons come in, we do have a bit of feathering on the edges here. Make sure you're not close to the edge so we can feather it out a bit more. And then once we reveal it, you can see it's sort of feathered out and not as sharp. So that's just a nice touch I do like to add and mention for the tutorial. Now, one more thing, if you want to go the extra mile, is we want to add some reflecting from our icons onto the subject's body. So let's duplicate the footage. We'll name this Roto. We'll delete the Mocha AE because we don't need this. And I'm just going to select my Roto brush, double click my layer, and let's quickly select the subject here, making sure we select all of the edges here. By holding down Alt, we can unselect edges as well. Okay, that seems pretty good. We do want to have a good first frame, so it does track forward pretty well. Once you're done, just select on freeze here and wait for this to finish. Okay, so if we play this back and isolate the layer, you can see we got a pretty good result. Now I'm using this for my reflections once again, so I will duplicate my layer. Let's name this reflection. And I'm going to enable it and scale it down just a tad here. And we can warp it, doesn't really matter. I just wanted to transfer the data onto the subject, and I can go into track matte and select my roto layer. So now it's sort of masked out where we want these reflections to be. And I'm just gonna add a fast blur and blur it out. Lower the opacity to maybe 40. We don't want to be too aggressive, maybe 25. And on my roto layer, I will increase the feather here to 70, so we don't have a sharp edge. Now with this together, you can see that we sort of have the reflection going into our subject, and it just adds a nice touch of realism. Okay, so this is how you can animate different icons coming in a warped composition. I hope you found this tutorial useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.